One of the reasons that many Californians, especially those with low and middle incomes, struggle to afford basic needs in our state is because we live in a really high-cost state, and at the same time, wage growth has remained relatively stagnant. So after you factor in the cost of living, California has actually had one of the highest, and at times the highest, poverty rates in the nation for several years. And as we detail in a recent Budget Center report that we put out on Labor Day, many families who live in poverty actually do work, but for low and middle income Californians, many low and middle income Californians, wages have simply remained relatively stagnant. So for example, after you adjust for inflation, in 2018, wages for low wage workers had actually increased just 4% relative to 1979, and just 1% for mid-wage workers. So when you pair this relative wage stagnation with increasing cost of living, you have a situation that simply isn't tenable for a lot of families. So as a lot of people know, throughout the state, housing affordability is a real problem. And this is actually true even in areas of the state where housing costs are relatively low, because at the same time, incomes are also lower in those parts of the state. So for a lot of folks, they're spending over 30% of their income is going towards housing, and for still others, that's as high as 50%. So when you're spending that much of your income going towards housing, you don't have a lot left over for food or for things like childcare or other basic needs that you need to make ends meet. So the good thing is that there are steps that policymakers can take to improve outcomes for Californians in our state. So for example, that wage increase that did happen for low and middle income Californians was due in part, yes, to an improving economy, but also because state policymakers made the decision to raise the state's minimum wage. And there are other steps that they can take to improve outcomes for California's families. For example, state policymakers can decide to expand the Cal EITC. That's a state tax credit that's geared towards low earners, and they can decide to make that more inclusive for immigrant families. Or they can decide to help Californians with high costs of living, such as improving access to affordable childcare or pursuing strategies to make housing more affordable for Californians. The end result is that yes, it's true that there are a lot of Californians who are struggling to afford the basic needs in our state, but policymakers can take steps to make sure that Californians can live and work in their communities and that we can all share in our state's prosperity.